What's going on, everybody? This is JMMA, and wow, UFC 305 has just taken place, and this card had me all over the place in terms of my feelings, as I have both been very happy in some fights, and I've also been absolutely devastated in a few. First of all, let's start off with the main event of the evening. Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, and Dricus defends his UFC middleweight belt against Adesanya by submitting him in the fourth round via round naked choke. And let me tell you about this fight. This fight made absolutely no sense how it happened. Adesanya looked the best he has ever had in the ring. He was picking his shots right. He was landing the most body kicks, body shots, most cleanest body shots I've ever seen. He would do a jab and a straight right hook to the body and it would land right on his body. Like, he had the most clean striking, and he looked damn near perfect on the feet. Dricus, meanwhile, on the other hand, looked absolutely terrible. How this man won a fight is purely just running through, no technicality at all, just straight up running through, throwing these overhands that'll eventually start catching the other person off. But man, did he look absolutely terrible in this fight. I was completely right in my prediction that Adesanya was going to completely outclass. He was going to be a better striker. I did say that DDP was going to have more success on the ground, which he did. Obviously, he did submit Adesanya, but this was mostly after he rocked him on the feet, which is something I didn't really think was going to happen. Since Strickland was never rocked on the feet, I just thought Adesanya would play this much too carefully, but turns out Adesanya just left his head in the air. Every time Dricus would throw an overhand, Adesanya will just lean his head back and end up getting hit with these overhands. And he got clipped a couple times in the first 3 rounds. But man, that third round, Adesanya absolutely destroyed Dricus. I mean, that was a pitch perfect round for him. He was absolutely breaking down Dricus, and I had it 2-1 Izzy going into the fourth, and I did have Izzy. I thought he was gonna win the fight. I just thought he was gonna keep this pace up, and then out of nowhere, Dricus just does what he always does, just runs in, throw these wild overhands that ended up catching Izzy right on the head and wobbling him, and then it ended up leading onto he got punched against the cage and then ended up being finished on the ground. And I mean, Dricus just looked terrible in this fight. I mean, salute to him. He won the fight against one of the all-time great in the UFC middleweight division, but wow. I mean, for Adesanya to go out like that, that's crazy. I don't know how to feel about this fight. I really liked how Adesanya looked. I really thought he seemed so aggressive. Like he didn't seem the same he did with Strickland or even against Pereira. He was more active than his fights against Pereira. You know, you really got the contender Izzy in this fight, and he was just going off, man. He was throwing these slick shots. He was catching Dricus on counters. He was bobbing and weaving until he just left his head on a swivel and then ended up getting hit by an overhand that ended up hitting him. Now let me say, Dricus must have caught him in the nastiest rear naked choke of in the world, because he tapped almost instantly. I mean, he got put in that rear naked choke and then not even 2 seconds later ended up tapping. Like, that was crazy. I'm over here looking at my phone like, wow, he actually tapped to that. Like, I understand, but he didn't even give a chance to fight. Like, he was just completely caught. And it's like, what does he do from here? He got caught crying in the interview. I still have to release that video. UFC 307 news and the press conference, but I couldn't because I was too busy. But, you know, crying in the interview, and then ended up getting submitted by the guy that made you cry. Like, this is a 2-fight losing streak, which Izzy has never had, and he has never been submitted before. So it's like you look at this face value, you think, damn, Dricus, how good is Dricus? How good is DDP? But then you watch the fight and you realize just how technically terrible he is. Adesanya looked the best technical fighter you've ever seen on the canvas, and then Dricus just straight up blitzes in and then throws these overhands. And I do think that like the key to beating Dricus is having takedown defense and just not holding your head in the sky. I mean, Adesanya kept on throwing these punches and then ended up just leaning back, and it's like, you can't lean back far enough with a guy just constantly running forward throwing these overhands. So this was an honestly crazy fight. I did not expect this ending. I thought Adesanya was gonna end up TKOing him in the fourth round, which looked very likely. Going into the fourth round, I expected him to really get TKO'd, but shout out, congratulations to Dricus, the true African champ. And yeah, let's move on to the co-main event where this was the hardest. Watching this fight live, Usyk looked good, man. He looked good. But then again, he did the exact same thing Izzy did. Kai Car French was running in, throwing these overhands. A lot more technical than Dricus, don't get me wrong, but you can't just keep your head like that. You have to duck under or do something with that. And wow, just seeing him get KO'd, it was... Man, I am sad just looking at this picture right now. I am completely devastated. I thought Usyk was going to KO him in the first round. Turns out it was the other way around. Usyk looked so good in the fight, but, when you go in against a power puncher in the flyweight division like Kai Car France, you just can't leave your head in the sky. You just can't. So, the co-main event goes to Kai Car France, and honestly, this hurts. With Usyk being my top 5 favorite fighters, this is one of the most painful losses I've ever felt since Aljo lost to Sean O'Malley. I'm gonna be honest that I'm devastated. I don't know how to. This one fight just makes me just completely dislike most things about the card, and I hate that I have to feel that way. But man, I'm just a huge Usyk fan, and it's like, wow, I can't believe he lost like that. I mean, Kai Car France sure won that. Congratulations. He beat a guy that arguably beat the champ. So it really brings the question, where does he go from here? So congratulations to Kai Car France. First round KO. Amazing performance. Moving on to the featured bout. Mateus Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. Let me tell you. Not only does Dan Hooker look so fucking cool in these tattoos, but this was an absolute battle in the cage. I mean, Dan Hooker just never fails to live up to his expectations of putting up an absolute show in the cage. I mean, this man just goes out there and just straight up brawls with the other opponent like he doesn't care if he gets KO'd. He just keeps on going. Now let me say, Gamrot, you have upped your striking game a lot. I mean, that when you dropped Dan Hooker in the first round, that was really impressive. That was a really impressive knockdown. His boxing looks slick. His striking looks slick. Although the thing about Gamrot is that he started crotch sniffing. He did. He started bowing down on the canvas in front of Dan Hooker, dying to reach for a leg. And it's just like, when you see a man like Dan Hooker all bloodied up, just straight up throwing these bombs out his fists and you're just reaching for the legs, it's just not a good look. I don't think it looked good for the judges either. I mean, Dan Hooker was catching Gamrot so much. Gamrot looked good, but Dan Hooker just looked a lot. He just had more grit in this fight. Like he just had more heart and just ended up he loves this. He loves the sport, and you can see it in the way he fights. He loves to be brutal. He loves to be bloodied up, and he loves to have these type of fights. So I mean, wow, what a performance! This was definitely the highlight of my night. I loved this fight. This was definitely the highlight of my night. Ersek's loss with the low light, and then Dricus versus Izzy is just. I honestly have no idea how to feel about it. As the future with the middleweight decision, the future of the middleweight division is completely in the air. But Dan Hooker, welcome to the top 5 again, brother. I hope to see you in some more banger fights in the future in the lightweight division. Moving on, Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, the biggest takeaway from this fight with the judge that scored this 30-27 to Tuivasa, how you can score that to Tuivasa, maybe even one round for Tuivasa, is absolutely crazy to me. I mean that I heard the judge was relieved of his duties, but that was complete robbery. That was the biggest takeaway of this fight. Now the second takeaway is just Tai Tuivasa just sucks. He's not good. He's really bad. I mean, these big plotty heavyweights, these overweight heavy hitters are just. That's the only thing that's in their arsenal. It's gone. These guys are getting run out the heavyweight division. They're not gonna last for long. With the introduction of Tom Aspinall being the champ, I don't care what you say. John Jones is not the champ. Tom Aspinall is the champ. He just shows how versatile a heavyweight can actually be. How fast and slick they can be, and not some big fat heavyweight. So I mean, this fight, I expected Rozenstruik to win. I thought he was gonna win by KO, considering Tuivasa's recent losses. But I mean, this is just a. This was a fight where, if you're a Tuivasa fan, this would absolutely break your heart. I'm not a Tuivasa fan all too much, so I didn't really care too much. But that judge needs to be fired from ever being a judge again, and we need to rid of these fat, plotty heavyweights. Moving on to the first fight of the main event, Ling Jae Liang gets knocked out in the second round by Carlos Prates, and I did call this. I thought it was going to happen in the first round, but I did expect him to get KO'd, and wow, it was sad. Carlos Prates had the he looked really good on the feet. His 1-2 was absolutely on point. Lindsey Liang was just he just was a step below. He couldn't keep up. Carlos Prates put that pressure on him, throw those slick shots, and ended up catching him, leaving him on the floor. And it's just a sad sight to see. It's just a sad sight to see. It's not something you like to see at all, but shout out Dricus Plessis for defending his middleweight championship. Congratulations to Kai Car friends, and absolutely banger performance of the night for Dan Hooker. That'll be it. Alright, good night.